That is such a great story, and it has within it one of the best bits of conversation in the whole Bible. Philip, so enthusiastic, says, we found the Messiah, he comes from Nazareth. And Nathanael, the best put down line, dripping with scorn, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Or, to put it in English terms, can anything good come out of Scunthorpe? But Jesus praises Nathanael for his honesty. Yes, he might have had low expectations, but he knew that, and he named it, and that is a starting point. Can anything good come out of Scunthorpe? And Philip says, come and see. And just that phrase overturns the grimness and the scorn and the despair. And so that should be our prayer too, that we can be people who come and see. And the pattern, that there is good, but we don't necessarily know where and how to find it, is exactly the pattern we hear in the first reading that Orlando read to us from 1 Samuel as well. It's a familiar, it's a moving story. You've got the old Eli and the young Samuel. The old Eli worn down, going through the motions, and yet when the moment comes, he finds the wisdom to help the young Samuel, who hears but doesn't know what he's hearing, doesn't know how to listen, who is there but not there. And he is the one who is trained to say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening," which is so similar to Philip's comment, "Come and see." And although that wonderful story in 1 Samuel chapter 3 is about learning to listen, it's not the beginning of the narrative. In the Bible, there are those 4 big books, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings. And they're a long narrative over so many verses and so many centuries. They're the narrative of God training the people to listen and trust, and training the kings to rule and guide. And so that we can see the pattern in that whole story, we're given an introduction. And the introduction is the story of Eli and Samuel, about learning to listen. And another story that happens just before Eli and Samuel. And I'd encourage you to go back and read it. But let me remind you, Elkanah, a faithful man in the people of Israel, has 2 wives. One is fertile, lots of babies, and the other, the wife he really loved, is Hannah, barren. A really grim situation. And she prays and cries and acknowledges her vulnerability. And from that, God gives Hannah Samuel. And in response to that, Samuel dedicates Samuel back to God. And before she gives her one child back to God, she sings the most sublime song. My soul doth magnify the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour. Well, actually, she doesn't say that, because that's Mary's song. That's the song we know as the Magnificat that Mary sings in the beginning, but it is modelled on Hannah's song. They are really the same, and the themes are the same. God brings life where all appears barren. Those who are arrogant or proud or rely on their strength to boss other people around, they will be brought low. And the needy, those who know their need and dare to name it, those who feel like dust and acknowledge it, well, God says, that's a good starting point. And let's see what we can do by bringing you up. Hannah and Mary sing the same song. And one thing more. They say, both of them, that God will judge all of us. Not to judge in the English sort of way, saying guilty or innocent. Judgment is about revealing. It's about opening up. It's about showing what true character is like, both for individuals and for nations. And that's obviously what the United States of America needs now. It needs, in the proper sense, judgment, true character to be revealed. And it happens here in 1 Samuel and in all the following books. This was a golden age of Israel. Samuel and Saul and David and Solomon. And the great heroes were often shown to have feet of clay. And yet, when they acknowledged that, when they admitted how fallible they were, that is when grace shines through. In morning prayer on Thursday, the leader of our daily prayer encouraged us to consider the soil now. It's mushy and unattractive and sodden with all the rain and looks lifeless. But she said, consider the soil and wait to see the snowdrops breaking through. That was a come and see moment. And so we can say with Nathaniel, can anything good come out of this pandemic? Philip says, come and see. And Eli teaches Samuel to say, with great eagerness, speak, Lord, for we are listening.